You were no more important to them than a screw that was holding in a hinge on a door. Yeah, it's probably a pain in the ass if that screw fell out, but it's easy enough to find another one and screw it back in, even if you have to redowel the hole and re-drill it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I don't know if today's going to be a guitar video or a story time kind of video. Maybe both. Since I haven't really done much the past week or so, consider it a bonus. A bonus. Please excuse, I'm still waking up. You're actually part of my morning routine today. I was playing the GTS here. The glary Strat. If you want to see the headstock, it's silly. But I want to talk about Parker Guitars. A company I don't talk about often. I worked there. I worked for Parker Guitars. It was both a dream and kind of a nightmare at the same time. It was one of my very first experience in reality. You know what I mean? Reality versus expectation. I started there in the late 90s. I graduated in 94. Say 97 to 96 to 98. Early 97 to late 98. I worked for them full time. It was a 9 to 5 kind of gig. I don't remember what time. I think we were there at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And we left at whatever, 4 or 5. Typical thing. How I got the job, it was actually pretty simple. And that, you know what? That should have been the first clue right there. It should have been the first clue of what's to come. But I was in between jobs at the time. And the rock and roll band thing wasn't doing anything. And I was working on somebody's guitar, and my to-be brother-in-law said, "You realize the next town over in Wilmington there's a guitar manufacturer, right?" No, I didn't know that. He goes, "Yeah, I don't know what they're called, but it was before the internet, you know. I mean, the internet was around, obviously, because, you know, Windows 95 is when I started doing the internet thing, but it wasn't as simple as just getting on Google then and figuring it out." So, and I found out there was a company out there called Parker Guitars, and I just recently seen them in the hands of a band, and I can't remember the name of them. They were like a cover band that used to play at the Town Line Lounge all the time. But they were opening up for America down at City Hall Plaza on the weekends. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have free concerts down at City Hall Plaza. And I can't remember their name. They played a lot of like Boston tunes and stuff like that. You know, the band Boston, not tunes from Boston. I guess it's one and the same, but they had these goofy guitars, and it turned out they were Parker Guitars. Parker had given them guitars because they were supposedly on their way to do something, and blah 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 blah. So I was pretty excited to see that it was going to be a manufacturer that's not just cut wood, add electronics, make it look pretty, get it out the door. It was innovative. It was innovative at the time. Now, the interesting part about the whole thing is I didn't actually work for Ken Parker. The paychecks were by Larry Fishman, of all people. Fishman, whatever the company's name is, you know them as the Fishman Fluence and the acoustic piezo style, you know, under the bridge saddle, all that stuff. Acoustic electronics. To my understanding, Ken and him collaborated. He said, "I'll fund the money to get your dream going." I don't know where it went from there, but by the time I got there, they'd been pretty established. And it wasn't a very welcoming environment. It wasn't a very welcoming environment at all. When you first walk in the door, you say, "Hey, I would like to work here. Do you have an application?" You fill out the application. Some guy came out, and he seemed super eager. And as soon as he saw that I had experience, done. Didn't matter. I knew how to hold a screwdriver in my hand, and I've worked on a guitar here or there, right? That's all he needed to see. I could have wrote nothing else on that application. I could have wrote, "Go F your mom," if I don't get this job. I do know how to work on guitars, and I would have gotten the job. And I started that day. I started that very day. And the first thing they had me on was assembling the pick guards. The pick guards for the night flies. Both the 3 single coil and the HSS setup. And that's what I did. I sat there next to this dude. I want to say he was from Puerto Rico or something like that. I remember when he found out I was an Irish guy. He's like, yeah, I don't mess with no Irish guys. You guys will go to the death. You're too stupid not to stay down. Some guy lost his mind or something and quit. And they're like, hey, since you got experience, will you mind coming over to this station? And it's where I ended up for the majority of my time there. And it was basically the final assembly on all the Fly guitars, you know, their flagship model. It was on this nice little rig, you know, you had your little foot thing, it's an air compressor, kind of. You had your little tools and everything there, and it was pretty interesting learning about the electronics that went into the guitar. The Flies are pretty interesting. Night Flies they're just goofy looking guitars. I will say though, they sounded way better than the Flies ever did. And every time I would go, ooh, that sounds nice, it was always a Night Fly in the dude's hand. Always, always, always. But regardless, working for Parker Guitars though was tough. The first supervisor I got was a conspiracy guy. He was always talking about how we need to do a good job. This is serious. Because when they come and take over, they'll see that we're hard workers and we won't become food or pets. We'll become part of, you know, their lower level. You ever see They Live? I think that's pretty much what he was talking about. I was glad when I left that dude's department. As far as working for them, though, it was like there was two camps. There was two camps there. The cats that had been there pretty much since day one, and everybody else. It was a revolving door. The thing that really upset me, and it kind of ruined, you know, don't meet your heroes kind of thing, it was kind of that situation. Because I hadn't been there for a while, I got no respect the whole 2-something years I was there, with the exception of my immediate shop steward, you know, I mean, supervisor, the foreman there. He was the only one who showed me any kind of respect, because he was a craftsman. He wasn't a guitar guy. He was a craftsman. He was a carpenter and, you know, cabinet maker and all that stuff. So he understood trade. He understood tools. He understood the woodworking aspect of it. He relied on us for the rest. and he made no bones about it. Really nice guy. Really nice guy. We'll get to... he went to bat for me a few times. And he was able to differentiate the people who... You gotta understand, when I say two camps, I mean two camps of people who work there. The newer cats and the people who had been there. But for the most part, the people who had been there were workers, you know? And if you watch video of them when they went to Maryland, they eventually moved to Maryland and I didn't go with them. Some of those same cats are still there, you know, and I you may not know, but I do. I saw that and I was just like, oh, they're in Maryland now. Wow, this is years later. And I saw a couple of dudes and his wife. There's this one guy and his wife that worked there, this Chinese couple. They've been there forever, and I'm pretty sure they paid for them to move. I'm guessing, you know. They've been there so long. But there were a handful of cats like that were always treated with respect and kindness, whereas the rest of us were disposable. Even though I had proved my worth a number of times and I was in charge of some pretty high-end guitar products. But I was in charge of a couple of guitars for a few artists that we all know and hopefully love because they're wonderful people. I'm not going to say their names in case I am under some kind of a non-disclosure thing that I don't remember. But if you weren't one of those elite originals, you were treated like crap. It was a revolving door. It was a bunch of pothead musicians that thought it would be cool to work in a guitar factory. And I kept my nose down. I stayed out of trouble, and I worked my ass off. There was a guitar that came in with some significant damage, and their head luthier guy, whatever you want to call him, the guy you brought the big problems to, quit. So I took care of it for him. I was kind of hoping that, you know, shit, they didn't care. They didn't give one iota of care about that. It didn't influence them at all, except for my supervisor. He recognized all the time my hard work, and that I wasn't there just because it was a cool job. It was legit something I was taking serious. And unfortunately, in the entire time I was there, I was never taking it serious. Little things like we had this thing after, I think 6 months, you were able to do an employee guitar program where they had all these seconds, meaning guitars that they couldn't sell first quality. And you could put it back on the line with your name, and I think it was like $450. It was the cost of whatever it was to build the damn thing. And mine got almost done. And Ken was just like, you know, I'm going to stop that program. Sorry, bro. With mine, I don't know. It was. I took it as a hint, but it's probably just coincidence. I had shown my worth. I was there to be a serious employee. And I went to my supervisor and I said, bro, I got a baby on the way. My first daughter was on the way. She was born while I was working there. Actually, it was after she was born. My apologies. It was after she was born. And I'm like, I need to find something that's a little more significant here. I was making minimum wage at the time. It was like $7.25 in Massachusetts. 7.5, 7.25, something like that. And I think I had made my way to $8, you know. But I'm like, I got a baby now. I'm going to be getting married. I think I've proven my worth. Is there any way we can get some money out of this? I'm not asking to become rich or anything. I need to be able to support this baby, you know? He says, let me talk to Ken and the powers that be. And I forget this, there was one guy like in between. And he came back and he was like, look, they're not going to do it. And they told me just to let you walk. But if you need to go, why don't you just put in your 2-week notice? I'll honor that. So what he was basically telling was he was coming back to fire me. Because I just asked for something like a few extra bucks. And that was how Ken Parker was. I don't know if it was something to do with me. I didn't have too much interaction with the guy. Well, yeah, I went to lunch that day and never came back. The guy called me. You're not like mad at me or anything, are you? Like, no, you're the only one who's been cool to me the whole time I was here. I mean, I made friends. I made some friends. There was one dude named Drew, who I gave my last copy of Wargasm while I play around to. And there was a couple other dudes in there. One dude from this town called Wakefield, who was in a band he was a big Doors guy. And if you stumble upon this man, he had a white Chevy van with the red stripes on the side and everything. I think it was an Astro. Hit me up, man. I'd love to jam with you if you're still in the town next door. But yeah, you know, it was a bittersweet experience. I could say I worked on guitars for a living. It wasn't much of a living. I had a few people that was cool with. They'd come see my show, and I'd go see them play if they played out or whatever. But for the most part, the people in charge just didn't give a shit. They really didn't care. You were no more important to them than a screw that was holding in a hinge on a door. Yeah, it's probably a pain in the ass if that screw fell out, but it's easy enough to find another one and screw it back in, even if you have to redowel the hole and re-drill it. It takes a few minutes just to, it's worth the headache, right? So that was working for Parker Guitars, Ken Parker. And I gotta say, it was a shitty experience. They sucked to work for. And I'm glad that they went the route that they went, because it was a great, innovative company that I would love to have grown with. I would love to have retired from and innovate with. You know, Larry Fishman, not a dumb person. Ken Parker, not a dumb person. They had some really interesting innovations going on there. And I don't know what happened financially with them as far as business is concerned. But I know how they treated their people. And, well, maybe not so much Larry Fishman. Let me take him out of this, because I only got to meet him once. And it was just in passing during a holiday party. Maybe it had something to do with that. I don't know. Maybe it's because they went import at one point. Maybe that was I don't know what killed them. As soon as I left, I kind of stopped giving a damn. Again, would love to have grown with them and been part of something really rad, but they weren't rad people. They just weren't rad people at all. You're in a field where people are trying to create tools that create. And it sucks when the business side of it gets too... Well, people just don't care. So, it is what it is. So there you go. There was my experience working at Parker Guitars. Hopefully you made it this far. I know I just rambled on, but to sum it all up, it was a bittersweet experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I'll leave you with this. And let me know if I did the right thing. This will prove that you watched the whole thing. There was many nights where they put the guitars to be polished to go out the door was right by the door. And I can't tell you how many times people have taken guitars from that and they put them in the dumpster and they came back after we were closed. There were plenty of times I could have just walked one out. No one would have known. We didn't keep track of the serial numbers very well back then. We had a notebook that I wrote down the ones I finished on anyway, and I think that was just more to prove that I'm working than anything. But I could have walked out with countless guitars. I would have only done one if I were to have done that at all. A root beer colored one. But I didn't do it. So Ken, if you're watching this, bro, I could have robbed you blind, bro, after that experience, but I chose not to do it. I chose integrity over property, I guess, principle over passion. I don't know. But either way, if you ever worked for Parker, let me know in the comments below. If you remember me working there, let me know. If you had the same experience, let me know. So it would validate it. If not, either way, I don't know. But guys, leave your feedback. Thumbs up, thumbs down, all feedback to the Creep is Positive. Thank you always so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around during my little lull here. It's going to happen. It's going to happen quite a bit with me. I do that. I'm not your typical YouTube creator. So I go by feel. And the next video I feel like making is Living with a Glary. I'm sorry I didn't play too much. But at least that means there's not going to be a lot for me to edit. And it's at 2 now anyway. So guys, wherever in the world you are, I hope you're doing well. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, take care, creep it real. And bye-bye.